Three, two, one, go.
And we are live. Welcome to the Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Dashing Rogan, with my frequent sidekick, Artistic Layman.
The Babylon Bee is just the funniest fake news website. It's satire. It's not supposed to be real, you know? You know?
Yeah. Oh, so we got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's let a few people get in here. Let me share this podcast out to some people. Let a few people join in here because we have a very interesting tale to tell. We have a very interesting tale to tell. Let's see if we can find. Let me share this on Twitter. Get out to my Discord. By the way, shout out to my Discord. Shout out to my the people on Twitter and following me on the D Live, Daily Motion, Twitter, freaking Trovo. And I will be uploading this later on to Odyssey as well as BitChute. That's what I've been doing lately. Go subscribe to me over at Odyssey, and go subscribe to me over at BitChute and all the alternative tech platforms. We may need them in the near future. Because apparently, I had a very interesting week this week. First off, welcome, Vinny, by the way. Welcome. How are you doing this week, Luke?
My week has been steady. How about yours?
My week has been sort of steady simply because we're in the middle of the holidays. So combine the pandemic, combine with the holidays, combined with everyone wanting to work remotely. Just basically living out the life of clerks, essentially.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Now, what do we got to talk about today? One of the things that I've been following, and again, I'm pro-Ukrainian. I'm pro-independent Ukraine, by the way, for those of you who need to know. This came into my mailbox yesterday, since we're going to talk about this a bit, because apparently Magnus, Jagnus the Red, I guess we can call him Jagnus the Red. I don't know. It's a pun off of Magnus the Red, who is one of the God Emperor's noble, was it Primarchs? Yeah, Primarchs. Yeah, he was one of the sons of the Emperor. Got turned to chaos because he desired power from Tzeentch. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, because I think that we are in a position where people are going to be censored. And I actually got censored. I have proof of it too. So first, play this. This is the reason why we're pro free speech. Keep going, play it.
At least planning for an invasion of Ukraine, perhaps even early next year. The invasion plan calls for nearly 200,000 Russian troops to mass near the Ukrainian border, along with tanks and artillery and battlefield tactical groups. And this is in addition to the provocative actions Russia has already taken. U.S. officials were quick to note Vladimir Putin's intentions are unclear, and perhaps Putin will not carry out the war plan. Nevertheless, the risk is being taken seriously enough that a meeting is scheduled between Putin and President Biden for Tuesday. A Russian invasion of Ukraine would ignite a major security crisis for Europe and create even more instability in what is already an increasingly unstable world. President Biden says the U.S. has a, quote, ironclad commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty. But what does that mean? For now, President Biden is expected to issue additional sanctions against Russia to deter Putin. But if Russia does act on this war plan and invades Ukraine, the U.S. is going to be expected to do a lot more than sanctions and stern lectures.
Yep.
Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe joins us now.
Before we talk about Radcliffe, which sounds like a Disney villain, by the way. I don't trust anybody who's a fucking politician nowadays. But one of the things I've talked about before many times is that Russia has a plan. We're in year 23 of their 40-year plan, which is listed in a book called The Foundation of Geopolitics. I've talked about this many times, and again, it's getting to the point simply because of the geopolitical tides of history and way things are right now, because we have a Democrat in office, right? Which I'll just say it right now. I don't think the Ukrainians can have, Biden in power. I really do think that we need to get rid of Biden before we can even help the Ukrainians. Because keep in mind, You know, didn't Hunter Biden have that that oil scandal with Burisma, I believe, the oil company in Ukraine, right?
Oh, it wasn't necessarily oil. It was a lot of American cash.
Yeah, American cash in Ukraine. Now, I've talked about how I don't really care about, corruption in the Ukraine when it comes to, our people versus their people. Simply put, because in that part of the world, corruption is rampant. And if you're not being corrupt, you don't want to win, essentially. That's sort of the idea, is that, that side of the world has been infected by communism to the point where, I've heard Romanians talk about, they go into a doctor's office and they carry a wad of cash with them just to pay off the doctor because that, bad habits die hard, so to speak. But again, I am pro-war in the Ukraine. I want that to be perfectly clear. I want to go and save and liberate those people. If I have to go Halo drop in like it's Verdansk and fucking Call of Duty, sign me up. Okay, I'm willing to do it. I'll bring my own gun and everything. But again, I'm of the opinion that we cannot lose the Ukraine. You can't lose Ukraine. If we lose Ukraine, guess what's going to happen? We're going to basically have to deal with not just China, but superpowered Eurasian Economic Union, Russia. We have to watch out for those people. Keep playing it, Luke.
If we have an ironclad commitment to the sovereignty of Ukraine, why would Putin even be testing us like this?
Well, Trey, I don't think it's testing. I think he's planning and preparing. You accurately identified that this threat is very real. That's not a matter of opinion. It's based on the specific intelligence that you talked about, and it's also based on history. The last time Putin amassed troops near the Ukraine border, he invaded. He took Crimea. And you recall that at that time, despite Joe Biden talking about ironclad protection of Ukraine, the last time he had the opportunity to protect Ukraine in the Obama administration, they sent blankets, not anti-tank missiles or anything else that would have helped Ukraine or stopped Putin. So, it also is consistent with history. Putin has talked about the fact that he viewed Ukraine at the fall of the Soviet Union having separation from Russia as an invalid divorce. And he's talked about Kiev being the medieval cradle of Russian greatness. And so he does intend
I wonder where he got that notion from. Oh, it's the medieval Russian cradle of civilization. It's the traditionalist way, man. It's at this point, whenever someone starts running their mouth like that, I immediately think to myself, traditionalist, bang in the head. Seriously, like, who the fuck do you think he got that notion from? Well, I think I know where I think you all know where I think he got it from. Keep playing.
Unify Ukraine eventually into Russia. It's one of the two things that he's talked about the most. That, and of course, controlling growing Russian economy and controlling the flow of energy into Eastern Europe, which he's able to do with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So Joe Biden's already given him one of the things that he cares about the most, and the intelligence tells us that that Russia very likely may act on getting the second thing.
Yeah. Which by the way, that oil pipeline he shut down, that's not necessarily for the Ukrainians, like economically. That's so that we can't pump up enough gas for us to resupply our troops if we wanted to go over there and fight. I've talked about that before. Did I not talk about that, Luke?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I talked about how they're basically going to shut down that eastern pipeline specifically so we cannot get that shipment of goods to the Ukrainians or our boys over there to fight the fucking Soviet boomers. Because that's what they are. They're Soviet boomers. They're not Russian. They're Soviet boomers who have a fucking personal problem when it comes to American sovereignty and hegemony, which, by the way, I got to say this. Fucking, what was his name? Razor Fist, right? He did the whole China's a paper dragon thing, and he even said, "Who's that hegemon?" Well, that's not these fuckers. They are not the hegemon. They're not the hegemon. Which I'm gonna rip that off from what is his name, Razor Fist, because Russia thinks they're the hegemon, but we're the real hegemon. We're more evolved hegemon than they are. I don't know. Keep going.
Leaders are on the telephone. I mean, how do you think this call is going to go? I mean, is Biden going to say, this is what we're going to do if you go through with this plan, or is it not that blunt?
Well, it should be blunt, and it should be aggressive because, the concern in a call between Putin and Biden is Putin is an ex-KGB, and the advantage goes to Putin in an interaction with an American president who is viewed by both allies and adversaries as not being strong based on just on the actions that he's taken on as president on national security issues. what should happen is
I think Putin is I don't think Putin. I think Biden is really legitimately bought off by the Russians. I believe that full-heartedly. I believe that the freaking Ruskies are going to go in. The issue I have is I don't want to get drafted because I have a feeling they're going to make us draft and then he's going to fucking put us in a position where we all get slaughtered. I don't trust that shit. I don't trust Biden in a position of power. He needs to be removed in that regard, okay? Because he's way too close to the Ukrainians. He's way too close to the freaking or to the Russians, I should say, not just the Ukrainians, but like again, this legitimately scares me. Keep going, Luke.
Who's that hegemon? In the immortal words of a cheddar-complected former president, China.
No, it's not China. It's Ruska, Russi. It's the Russian land. Actually it's the America. Fuck yeah. Let's keep going.
You should threaten to take it away. It's not too late. The Biden administration is apparently admitting that they've made a mistake at our southern border and is going to reverse and go back to Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. It's also not too late to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's something that Putin desperately needs to grow the Russian economy. And any action taken in interference with that would likely cause Putin to hesitate and stop. So will we get that kind of forceful action, Trey? We haven't seen it. We didn't see it at our southern border. We haven't seen it with regard to the Middle East and Iran. We haven't seen it with respect to China and their aggression against Taiwan. And, I guess, to that point, folks that work for me in the intelligence community and talking about this say the threat is there is a concern and there is talk about planning that the United States could end up on the wrong end of a 2-on-1 fast break. If Russia moved on Ukraine and China moved on Taiwan, again, those things I think are a ripple effect of what happened in Afghanistan and our other foreign policy disasters.
Yeah. And again, let me just say this right the fuck now. It's going to be like, I personally am of the opinion that we will lose either Taiwan or we will lose the Ukraine. But we have the potential to fight back, and we could if we have good leadership. I don't believe we would have good leadership with Joe Biden. I believe we could possibly fight back and take both. We did before. We did during World War II. We fought a war in the Pacific and a war in the Eastern Front, or not Eastern Front, the Western Front. We can easily do it here as well. It's not that hard. We're tough enough. I played a lot of Verdansk quads. I could definitely do it. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. Keep playing.
Short months of this administration.
Johnny, before we go, this week is the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. We lost Bob Dole in World War II.
No.
Oh, no. Here we go.
No. Keep going.
Generation. You have a daughter that is at a service academy. You have two wonderful daughters. You have one that is at the service academy. We served with people who wore the marks of war, Sam Johnson and John McCain and Tammy Duckworth and Brian Mast. But when I think of Bob Dole, I think of a man having to hold a pen because of the injuries he suffered in defense of this country. Before I let you go, your reaction to the passing of Bob Dole and the anniversary of Pearl Harbor.
Well, I didn't serve with Bob Dole, but as you know, we saw him on Capitol Hill a lot. I was always amazed how often he was.
What's sad is all I know Bob Dole from is a freaking the Family Guy freaking gag. That's all I know Bob Dole from.
I only remember him from that Halloween Simpsons episode.
Bob Dole. That's what I remember him from. No, but the reason why we have to be very careful of this type of crap is because, again, we have sophists out there. We have liars, deceivers, and manipulators. People who don't have any connection to, who don't have, I'll just say it, Wojcicki has sort of given these people a platform. And it's hard for people like myself to actually push up. What's this? What is this? What do you got here? Is this recently released?
Oh, no, this was before the election.
Oh, 2 weeks after Trump elected, Biden calls Poroshenko. Yeah, which is Poroshenko is he the pro-Russian or is he the pro-independent Ukrainian?
I forget which one.
I don't know, but we gotta look that up because it's gonna get to the point where I have a feeling that we're gonna be attacked on our mainland. Because one of the things that I've always been concerned about is I've as much as I like the idea of like Florida being paradise of liberalism and not liberalism but like conservative values and American values. You guys get hit with a fucking nuke or something, you do know that the entire voter base of this country is going to change. overnight. I'm just saying, I don't like clustering together. You could say whatever you want about me being in the Silicon Valley, but one of the things is you guys shouldn't cluster together, because I guarantee you, not only are the men capable of fighting the war all in there and all in one really close, tight area, they're also the people who would probably vote to go to war. Okay, because legitimately, I have a feeling that they will fucking kill all the alphas or the tough guys, and then all you're gonna have left is the gangsters and the fucking soy boys. If they attack, if they attack 8th place, they're not gonna attack the Silicon Valley. They won't do that. They would rather attack. Like Florida or Texas. Let's keep going. What does this have to say?
2 weeks after Donald Trump's victory, Joe Biden is on the phone with Poroshenko. His voice tenser now than before.
This is getting very, very close. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want Trump to get in the position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a politics where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the details.
In other words, Biden does not want Ukraine asking for more money from Trump. Doing so would cause Trump to look into the details.
So anything you can do to push the Privat Bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, I would respectfully suggest is critically important to your economic as well as physical security.
And now you know why impeachment was put forward at literally the exact moment Trump started asking pointed, public questions about Biden and Ukraine.
Yeah, and Biden's a traitor. We have to keep that in mind. He's a piece of shit. He is a fucking black sheep. He's trying to stab us in the back. TradCat says, lol, voters never asked why their state representative is always focused on global affairs. Exactly. Triple X says, do you think we will go to war with China and Russia soon? Yes. I think we're going to have a scenario where it's like Battlefield 4. If you ever look up Battlefield 4, go play the campaign of that game. I actually have it live streamed, I believe, if it's out still. I'm not sure. But we're going to move on from that because let's just say that everyone's favorite enabler. I don't even want to call him enabler because I like Jack Murphy. I like Jack Murphy a lot. But this scared me.
Guess who?
Who? Yep, everyone's favorite fucking ghoulish vampire, Dracula himself. He looks like Rasputin from fucking what was it, the Anastasia?
Rasputin.
Rasputo, yeah, that fucker.
Except I think he was a walking corpse, and I think he had more color in his cheeks than Dugan does in this shot.
It's
of course.
cold over. Well, it's interesting. We have Red Man and we have the White Man. The other, I'm just saying, hey, just call it like it is. But the thing that pissed me off about this whole fucking scenario is that apparently, this was streamed back in this was streamed a couple days ago, and I gave out a few super chats because one of the things I like to do is I like to put my money where my mouth is. But the super chats that I put out apparently were being deleted.
They disappear. Well, at first they were there, but then after a while you're making some other comments, and all of a sudden your comments start disappearing.
Which to me is ridiculous because I talk. If you don't want people to chat spam the chat, I get it. I didn't spam the chat. I literally didn't spam the chat. So here's what I posted. What are Dugan's thoughts of Stalin? What is his thoughts on Colonel Sergei Tretyakov, aka Comrade J? Now this was taken from Luke's point of view.
This is near the end.
This is near the end. Deleted. And you can see from the guy up there, Soros isn't Soviet. I'm like, well, Putin's a Soviet. He's a Soviet boomer. Fucking, I would say, little fucking Grigory Rasputin over here. That fucker, he's fucking a Soviet Gen Xer. But all these people are Soviets. And keep in mind, I don't hate the Russians. I do not hate them. They're hit or miss like any other group of people. But one of the things I am getting sick and tired of is seeing old men send young men to go die in a war for their fucking ideals. It's really I'm kind of becoming like Big Boss in this regard, or not even Big Boss, fucking Solid Snake in this regard. Because I'll tell you this, I do want America to be supreme, but at the same fucking time, this is scary shit. This is levels of This is levels of censorship that I don't know if it's if it's Jack doing it, or if I just got put in timeout by one of his people and he mistaken me for something. But again, who is Sergei Tratyakov? Let's look him up. Who Sergei is.
I mean, to be fair, Jack was saying this isn't a debate, this is a discussion. So your comments might have been quote unquote conducive to the discussion.
Yeah, but even then, like there's a possibility of that. There is that possibility. I will gladly accept that as a term, but at the same time, it's not really a discussion, is it? Like, there's this notion that, like, oh, why are you attacking him? Why can't you just attack his ideas? I'm like, I have attacked his ideas. There's some of his older ideas, but the same level of like giving, just let it go, guys. Just let it go. Just let it go. He's changed his mind. I'm like, okay. So if Vosh or let's say Antonio Gramsci, who is they're both dedicated Marxists, right? If they both came out and said, oh, lordy, I saw the light, capitalism is wonderful and communism is the way of the devil, would you just automatically believe them? Like if you had a change of heart over like a period of like 10 to 6 months, that's one thing. But if you make an entire book that is used by that you have to read in the Russian military if you want to be above the rank of colonel, and that in your book blatantly advocates for sowing racial discord in a country that you want to undermine, and that said country is the United States, at what point do the United States citizens have a right to want to fight back against this and be skeptical? You know, just because you say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a changed person. I don't think a lot of these right-wingers particularly are able to actually, you know, spot evil. Like they've lost that ability to recognize that someone's trying to con them. I think a lot of it boils down to a lot of right-wing people or what have you. They either are, you know, the ones, there are only two types I would imagine to be able to see it. The police and those who serve in the military. Okay, but the average person, the average right winger, it has been defeated by their father's victory. Their money, the lifestyles they live shelters them from encountering people who are evil. Shelters them. It protects them. TradCat says, you know how many families in Congress are beholden to China? CCP has no reason to attack us and mess up up portfolios. They don't. And that's why, you know, I think that what's happening is we're going to be a vassal state, or not even a vassal state, the terminology would be. We're not going to be a vassal state, but we're definitely going to be, you know, fighting on Chinese interests and maybe even Russian interests or Ukrainian interests. But I'll tell you this, no one benefits from, except Russia, for taking the Ukraine. The Ukrainians don't want it. They have a bunch of illegal aliens little green men trying to infiltrate and trying to mess up their game. So I found it very interesting that I was being censored. Now, granted, I was a little bit talkative in there. Is Donald Trump a perfect example of not spotting evil? No. Steve Bannon would be. Steve Bannon would be someone who's not spotting evil. Another example of not spotting evil would be a lot of these European right guys, the people like Martin Sellner. I'll give you let's see if I can find that clip of it. There was a clip of Martin Sellner basically what he was basically a gentleman who worked, I think, for the New European Right, I believe it was. And one of the things him and his crew did was they went into a university lecture and they were basically saying, we want free speech. We want to say our mind. We want to do this. And then the lecturer says, okay, let's hear what you have to say. And then they left. They immediately left because they weren't interested in actually having anything to say. They were just saying they were being oppressed. They were being censored. So then when you actually get the actual dialogue, the actual transcript of the conversation they were having with the so-called liberal professor, you realize that these people are lying. They'll say that they're being oppressed. They were kicked out. They were escorted out by the security. But in reality, the security came in with them. And you wouldn't know this if you were only following English-speaking media. That means people like, you know, I think it was Styx Hexenhammer is talking about watching Xinhua news. I think we need to start watching some Ukrainian news, watching Russian news, watching Chinese news, watching Mexican news. You know, Telemundo is on freaking TV. Okay, you can go watch it. Go watch some Brazilian stuff. But, you know, I guess my issue here is that, you know, people are way too naive. They're too coddled. They don't understand that people are willing to lie to them, and they can look in their face and tell them a lie. Now, the reason I don't like these traditionalists is because you have these people who, for no fault of their own, they got where they're at because of a combination of Marxist censorship, or at least on YouTube. Like, let's be frank, Tim Pool is only Tim Pool because he doesn't have, because let's be frank, Adam Krigler doesn't get enough votes or enough views.
It sounds like swamp.
What's up?
Oh, misplay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really upsetting, honestly. I think that the right's inability to spot evil is going to be the downfall of the right if we don't fight back against this stuff. So I wanted to point that out specifically because I personally am of the opinion that that we're going to give up to Russia if we don't fucking start fighting back. We're going to give everything up if we don't fucking start pushing back against this stuff and realize that Russia is not our friends. They want empire, and they're willing to stab America in the back to get it. And let's suppose, for the sake of argument, we pull our shit together and get everything in order. What's to say that they don't immediately turncoat? They'll be all friendly, nice now, but the moment we become a freaking threat on the world stage, they'll fucking knock us down. These people are not our friends. They are run by the Soviet boomer. We have to fight back against it. So tell people about the foundation of geopolitics. Tell people that you support the Ukrainians. So tell people that you fight against the Russian subversion and Russian aggression. Oil aggression as well. Because I'm at the point where I'd want to be able to push back against it. So besides Magnus the Red giving his power to the forces of chaos, along with the God Emperor's most trusted son, Horus.
Quick comment.
What's up?
Remember, the lesser of two evils is still evil. And the enemy of my enemy is not my friend.
I liked him back in the day. I liked him a lot. Back when he was still a thing, I liked him until he started, hanging out with Gavin Newsom. A second American Civil War? No. I refuse to raise a hand against the SJW. They may need to be spanked every once in a while or put on the right path, but I am not going to fucking start a civil war. And I think a lot of people don't want to fight a civil war. But guess what's going to happen? I guarantee what's going to happen? The Chinese are going to go fight it. Are going to go start shit. I have a feeling that the Chinese are gonna get a little bit too tough and act all tough. And as a result of that, they're going to try to do something stupid. They might try a Pearl Harbor type of style attack. And then we'll have every fucking reason to go after these people, whether it be the Chinese and the Ukrainians. Because I'll tell you this, China strikes first, we'll get in a war with China, they'll take the Ukraine immediately. And at that point, we have to go fight a war on two fronts. But we're not having American Civil War. In fact, what I would think that the Chinese and the Russians are waiting for is for that second American Civil War, which we are not going to give it to them. Because we've already had a second American Civil War. The first Civil War was Bacon's Rebellion. The second Civil War is what we would call the Civil War with, the Confederacy and the Union. The third Civil War, that's what you should be worried about, So let's move on to something a bit more interesting. All right. So the TradCat Retirement Plan, I've talked about this before. We have a bunch of these women who act out and act really, really degenerate. And you remember Little Miss Poopy Pants, right?
What about her?
Well, she's apparently a Catholic now. And I've talked about how a lot of these women are going to use Christianity as not even as a religious savior, but they're going to try to use it as a social savior. Say, no, you can't talk shit to me. I'm a Christian. I'm a good Christian girl now. Keep playing. Play it, Luke? I want to hear what she has to say.
For us to have a talk about one, where I've been, and two, my thoughts on the direction of the MAGA movement. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and there are some things that need to be addressed. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I've seen you. You look great as ever.
Now, granted, this was back in November, so...
This was back in November, but she released another clip I wanted to talk about because, again, the thing that's so interesting to me about this is that I've always said that you're going to see a lot of these conservatives basically say, I'm sorry for all the horrible things I did. I'm now a traditionalist. It's be careful of these women. Be careful of these guys. They
believe the bad press said about them. It's stupid.
Yeah. How so? Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, when people would think about when the conversation about Trump comes up, it's always, oh, so you justify the insurrection? Like Trump didn't even support the insurrection. What are you talking about? But they say, oh, well, Trump did that, and so everyone believes the lying bad press about it. It's so stupid.
How we doing, Beckloff? I'm doing fairly well, man. I'm not watching that melted face pants shitter. Yeah. Well, guess what? Now she's a Christian. She's now a TradCat. Don't you know? So now she gets to have that retirement plan and all of her sins and all her social bullshit. Oh, you should turn the other cheek. Don't worry. I'm a moral superior to you. I'm better than everybody. You know, we're going to get Jim Grode to come back and basically do his little I want him to dress up as this chick and basically do the same thing that he did with Arini.
Well, we can't see the dislikes, but I'll see if there's. It's probably a big pour of her supporters are probably going to upvote her videos anyway. So I'm just curious how many downvotes.
Well, yeah, they're always going to do it. They're always going to do it. You know, she shat herself. Yes, she go online. You type in was it Liberty Hangouts girl? She shat herself. This is the same girl. Like she was at a party, and here's the thing. She shat herself because she was basically drinking and partying. This woman basically wanted to have her cake and eat it too. And now that she's getting old, she's going to play the traditionalist card. Guys, don't give this pussy the time of day. Keep going.
Now, it's no secret that I've been MIA for a little while, and I feel as though I owe you guys an explanation for why. Today, I want to get into half the reason why, and then my thoughts on where conservatism seems to be heading. And in a separate video, I'll tell you part 2 of where I've been, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on that video. Let's backtrack all the way to the beginning of the year, January to be exact. For those of you who remember, Liberty Hangout was demonetized on Facebook after big tech started coming down hard on pages that supported President Trump. While our monetization wasn't spared, our page thankfully survived the purge. But we became increasingly weary about what we were allowed to post now that we felt like our whole livelihood was at stake. We started noticing that other like-minded creators were getting censored left and right for talking about the BLM riots, the response to COVID-19, the 20 action, and literally every single topic that conservatives wanted to talk about. Since I don't have the luxury of being sponsored by large organizations like PragerU or Turning Point USA.
Liberty Hangouts is its own fucking brand. What are you on about? Like, this woman legitimately has her own fucking brand. You know, this is like the equivalent of saying Tim Pool isn't being sponsored by Turning Point USA or PragerU, but he still makes it. And you know why they make it? It's because there's no competition on YouTube. If they had the old 2006 algorithm, we wouldn't be. These people would be left behind. For someone who's more photogenic or whatnot, or somebody who actually shows tits, let's say, because it's the old 2006 YouTube, right? Like, well, you can literally have like some Japanese, like big titted Japanese girl read Mein Kampf, or what was it, the one that everyone wanted you to read, Tzeentch, I think it was. They want everyone to read like it was a similar Wignat book. They
Turner Diaries.
Yeah, they want them to read the Turner Diaries. They want like a fat, like not a fat chick, like a big boobed chick to read it, and that's all they wanted. You know, I don't know. Keep going. Let's play it.
I'm 100% independent and backed by you guys and you guys only. And the relationship you and I have built over the last 3 years isn't something I felt ready to abandon just to get a few thousand views on some clickbait video. So we took a backseat to politics and let people funded by millionaires do the talking, and we would stick to some street interviews about less intense topics. And perhaps we played it too safe this year because we have taken way long of a break, but nonetheless, here we still are. And over the course of my break, I have been able to dedicate a lot of time to new and exciting chapters in my life, which I wouldn't be able to share with you had I gotten myself banned from social media. The first and most important thing to happen during my break is that I stopped being an atheist.
Yeah, being banned is not exactly a negative, though.
No, it's not. I mean, it just means when you take flack, you're over the target, right? Which, by the way, that's a very
Sticks found a way to not get himself banned, but he's much more clever. He's just more subtle.
Well, it's also the fact he's more well-spoken. I mean, I cuss because I have a disability. I stutter, so therefore I have to cuss, because if I don't cuss, I'm gonna sound really weird. You know, I'm very much like Samuel L. Jackson in that regard. I have to cuss because if I don't cuss, I mumble. TD is a Turner Diaries is Wignat message fiction. The science fiction, the sci-fi is actually good, but 90% of it sucks. I don't know. I have not read the Turner Diaries. I've read the synopsis of it. You know, that Timothy McVeigh fucker liked it. But I don't know. I mean, let's keep going.
An atheist and dedicated my life to Jesus Christ. I'm not even sure how many of you knew I was an atheist, but I'm sure it's rather shocking. This is why in my debates about abortion over the past 3 years, you have never heard me bring up religion. I want to make a separate video getting into the details about my conversion, but I've been spending an incredible amount of time learning, asking questions, saying sorry to God, and attending Mass. I started the RCIA program to be confirmed the Catholic Church next year, and I'm so excited to share more of that with you all as the journey progresses. The second thing that happened was that I asked myself what my absence from YouTube would mean to you guys watching, to politics in general, and to the country.
You're not that important. You're not that important.
I mean, you do have 600,000 subscribers, but I don't give you a second thought.
I really like you're the shit stirrer. That's what you are. You literally are the shit. You're the shit stirrer. You're the one that shows up with a fucking AR-15. I actually like. Can you like pull up the picture of her with the AR-15?
Yeah, give me a second.
Hold it up, because the thing that got me about this chick is that she didn't even have like a pistol, AR pistol type of setup, or like something that would actually be useful for like close to medium engagements, right? Because she's not going to need to reach out and touch people at 200 yards in a self-defense scenario. Someone like her is better off with a pistol caliber carbine, or I wouldn't even say a shotgun, but like depending on the load.
Here we are.
There we go. Little Miss Shit Stirrer. Part of me thinks to myself, you could probably get like her with some toilet paper around the freaking. Yeah, I don't know. I'm being kind of a dick now. That's just.
Let's
me.
see.
Like,
oh, come and take it. Oh yeah.
Come and take it. Yeah, sure. I'll come and take it. You'll shoot me. It'll bore right through me, and it'll hit some kid. Then you'll be liable for that. That's your fault. And that's one of the reasons I didn't like this chick is because she basically she's just fucking virtue signaling. That's all she's doing. Yes, you have a right to defend yourself. I agree. Why are you carrying a fucking 16-inch fucking barrel? You know, you could easily get something that's cheaper and more effective, and it's not going to over penetrate the target. Again, this is on a university campus, so she has to be precise. I get that, but even then, it just doesn't seem right. You know, it's like she was trying to make a statement, not trying to actually do what she said she was there to do. So that's one reason I don't like her. But going over to her conversion, and that's the thing that I want to talk about. Type it.
Came up with nothing of value, and it really made me think, am I just making videos that have something to post? Yep. Am I even doing something genuine to my heart? No. Can I provide better, more meaningful content to the world? Yes, I can. It's hard to describe, but I feel that I have more to offer you all through my content than just complaining about the news of the week like every single other political commentator on the internet.
Well, at least you understand where we are also. I will agree with you on that. You at least acknowledge that it's kind of become like that Anchorman 2, where they have like 100 different news people. Like they have CNN, they have MSNBC, then they have Fox News, then they have like the BBC, then they have the Canadian Broadcasting Television, and they get the ESPN, and then they get all these different types of news out there, and they all show up and they all start duking it out, like in the freaking that's the first one, which was way better, by the way. It's sort of what's happened with YouTube. Everyone's fighting for to get that to get that niche.
Everyone's fighting over the space of who can read the news to enough more interestingly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly one of those people who I'll be frank with you, I've always taken this like it's not even like a second job, but like just a side gig. I just talk about what I want to talk about, speak about what I want to speak about, and move on. And just so happens that I'm talking about, her right now. I'm talking about the Russians a lot because everyone else is talking about everyone else is talking about the left. Like that's another thing. They just bash the left. They never talk about the right. I'm the one who talks about the right more often than not because I think that both sides need to be criticized. No one talks about the Russians except, in the context of the 2016 election. But other than that, there's no, like I found my own niche. So I'm glad she found her niche as well. What is said niche, please?
you should be mad about this week. What good am I doing by showing you how mentally unstable college students are when I step onto their campus? We all know how deluded they've been for years. Let's be honest. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to offer you guys something that brings me joy to create, something different that you can get from me that you can't get from the other dozens of conservative YouTubers. Now, I won't be stopping my pop quiz on the beach videos. I love the good-hearted nature of those. I won't even stop going to rallies when they eventually pop up again, but I want
By the way, the pop culture and the beach videos, that's Mark Dice's territory, and he does it way better. Even my boomer parents love Mark Dice. I don't know. What were you gonna say, Luke?
Nothing.
Okay. So here we go. Play it.
For the content that leaves the viewer happier after watching the video than when they clicked on the video. Something I've noticed ever since Joe Biden has become president is that in a lot of ways, the right now stands where the left did for the last 4 years. We are pessimistic, we are mad, we are discouraged about the future, and we have even been dominated by our emotions.
I'm not discouraged by the future. If I die and I go down swinging, I'm not discouraged at all. I'm in California. I mean, there are people out there who are way better off than I am, and they're in fucking Florida and these unlocked states. But I feel way good about the way things are right now. Now, keep going.
Now, don't get me wrong, I do not think conservatives will get anywhere near as emotional as Democrats did in 2020. But I do see us trending down a path that we're better than, and I think we have so much more to offer our country than expletives and outrage. Something I was thrilled to discover this year is that your happiness should not depend on who is in the Oval Office. Your joy shouldn't come from a political party or the policies that they enact. Now, while we may need Trump to keep more of our money and our freedom, we don't need Trump to be happy and in good spirits. The only thing we need for that is the love of God and the support of family. This is where I feel as though I differ from so many conservative creators out there. I have never centered my identity around politics, but about the things I genuinely believe in and the things that bring me happiness. That's why I love sharing my wedding with you and the ways my husband and I are able to complete each other. And I don't say this
Which, by the way, she apparently hasn't even converted yet to Catholicism. So this guy married unevenly yoked. And for those of you who don't know what unevenly yoked means, it means that you married a Christian woman and you weren't even a Christian. So what that basically means is that that's a big no-no, because you're supposed to be, one spirit. You're supposed to, this two are to become one, and you're supposed to be one under God. And this woman, again, I'm not saying her faith is false. I'm simply saying that this guy should not have married her until she converted, gone through RCIA, and gone through, the whole commitment, the conversion process, and to know for certain, because let's say these two break up, and I've talked about it before. I said we're going to see a lot of divorces come out of this, because this whole meme war, people are marrying for political fucking favor, like it's the Game of Thrones or something. How many people how many people are marrying just so they can say, "Oh, look, I got married. I'm so awesome." Real talk.
How many people had named their children after Game of Thrones characters?
Yep. Khaleesi. Yeah, she is not the Khaleesi. She's not the Khaleesi. So let's play the next clip of her. And of course,
no longer an atheist at my journey to faith.
Pick the picture of Mother Mary right in the background. Do it, you poser. Do it.
A lot of you may be shocked to hear this, but for the last 3 years you've been watching my videos, I was an atheist. But that's not the case anymore, and I want to open up to you guys about my journey.
Can we at least acknowledge the fact that atheists fundamentally don't exist?
Well, they don't exist, except in militant atheism.
Yeah, but militant atheists are like people who actually take their atheism to a politically active position where you have to act on your atheism. Whereas most atheists are just people who are snarky, condescending Christians who don't want to be affiliated with any denomination.
Yeah, they're basically orthodox, essentially. Yeah.
Because you challenge these people and they back off, because most atheists I deal with have taken the completely agnostic, neutral stance. Like, well, I don't believe in God, but I'm not going to take it to its logical conclusion, because that would be intellectually consistent.
Yeah. Oh, you poser. We're gonna get fucking muted.
Where are we anyway?
We're in like some sort of, it's probably a cemetery. I don't know.
A lot of statues.
This
is a mission.
I
Being
have
an atheist is not what most people think it is. At least it wasn't for me. Most of you probably think that people are atheists because they want to do whatever they want and have no consequences.
that is egotism. That's not atheism.
But isn't that kind of the point? I mean, if you lack belief in God and you reject the authority, isn't the whole point to do whatever you want? I mean, I thought that was the biggest driver to atheism.
Right.
Don't believe in God, his commandments, sin, or hell, then you don't have to worry about living a sinful lifestyle or feeling guilty for your actions. This was not the case for me. Everything I'm about to tell you is, of course, from my own experience and my perspective. Being an atheist was one of the most terrifying things I ever put myself through, and I did it for more than a decade. Because I was so ignorant and uninformed, I feared what it would mean to go to hell. When I started doubting God and religion at around 12 years old, it came from a place of disbelief at the stories in the
How is
Bible.
this atheist?
Also
How is this atheism? Like, don't atheists don't believe in a God, or is that atheism?
Like, yeah, I mean, if you
Are we
don't
like-
believe in a God, you're not going to believe in hell. So when did hell come up in the conversation? That would be an interesting thing to say. Like, at what point do you realize, maybe hell isn't just a superstition. Maybe it is a real place. Maybe it is something real to it.
Maybe it is, but even then, I wouldn't consider this woman an atheist. I consider herself, an antinomian, maybe, perhaps, but I don't think she's a fucking atheist.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis had a better story on this.
It was a desire, that something that I recognized.
Here it is.
Between my...
Where are you? Here we go.
Not let him go. I was, at that time, living like many atheists in a world of contradictions. I maintained that God did not exist. I was also very angry with God for not existing.
Yeah.
Right. So keep going.
Scared of hell and Satan. It was easier for me to just reject it all if it meant not taking seriously the possibility of burning in hell or the reality of Satan. But that did not make my fears of those two things go away. The most memorable fear I had was dying. The thought of my death terrified me. Did I really live just to be put in the ground? Is my whole existence going to end with worms eating my brain?
Now this is an interesting question.
What would you say?
This is a more interesting concern. Like, is this really all life is? It's just to live and die and disappear as if you never existed. That's a genuine question to bring up.
It absolutely is. That's one point for her.
And the worst part was thinking, what would my family endure after death? Would I really never see them again? Unknown to my 12-year-old brain, rejecting the goodness of God's light for the sake of trying to minimize my fears of hell would lead me to exacerbate my anxieties and fears surrounding this topic. You see, what would always occupy my mind was the question, what if I'm wrong? And that is an uncomfortable feeling to live with as a teenager and young adult. I firmly believe that anyone who proudly boasts their atheism is trying to convince themselves that they're right, not the people they're boasting to.
Might be some truth to that.
Right, but even then, like, it's not that I don't want them to share their testimony. It's just that you're so close to politics. No one really cares about. I don't really care about this woman. I don't care about cockroach Charlie Kirk's fucking life. I don't even really care so much about freaking Candace Owen, except the fact that she's a Unitarian. But so why do I care about this one? Like, this one was always just the gun girl. That's how I know her. But now she's trying to get closer, so I kind of feel like it's kind of infringing on what we already have as a viewership relationship. Keep going.
And that comes from experience. Even though it scared me, I had always heard that if you reject God to your friends, then he will reject you from heaven. Well, I had already done that, so why would I stop? Unfortunately for me, I did not grasp the depth and beauty of what Jesus' death meant for people like me. I truly had no understanding whatsoever of his mercy, his sacrifice, and ultimately his forgiveness until now. When I would get mobbed on college campuses by hundreds of liberals, I would constantly have anti-Christian remarks hurled at me. The students would accuse me of being a Bible thumper, a stupid Christian, and you get the point. But when I would tell them I'm actually an atheist, they would be shocked and almost seem a little more accepting of me. One time, a guy actually backed off from berating me in a mob of 400 people when I shared that information about myself, and it did not make me feel good at all. How could I possibly align with people who treat others with no dignity? I was actually so embarrassed of myself that I would make sure those parts never made it into the final video that was released to you all. Even when I was an atheist, I always believed in right and wrong, and good and evil. One issue I've always been very passionate about is that I'm anti-abortion. I've always recognized that every human life is sacred, but could not justify my position without God. It seems so obvious to me that some actions in this world are blatantly evil, but how could I say this if there was nothing in the universe to decide what's absolutely right and wrong?
You simply come up with an authority that's outside of the universe. No, literally, that's what you have to do. So, how can God, talk about the box? How can you make any authority about claims about the box if you're not within the box, right? So the box of existence is basically the universe, the cosmos, and what have you. So God is outside the box. You're in the box. Suffering, pain, misery, the human experience, the cosmos is in the box. God's outside of the box. That's the idea behind it. Keep going.
Matters, then why would it matter right now? I battled with those feelings internally, wondering if I truly believe there's no God, why do I feel so ashamed for saying it out loud? It's because the truth about God, Jesus, and our creation is written on our hearts for us to search for Him and ultimately end up finding the truth that is so apparent if you just seek it. I'm sure many of you are asking what made me convert. I'm sure you can guess that the answer isn't that I had a magical experience that just changed my mind one day and I've been blessed ever since. Instead, it started years ago with my incredibly devout Catholic husband. We married in the Catholic Church in 2020 because he wanted to make sure our marital vows were sealed by Christ and fulfilled through the sacrament of holy matrimony.
But you were unevenly yoked. You weren't evenly yoked. You legitimately married a woman who you're not supposed to marry. It's one thing to be, to wait until the RCIA is done, but you never said she said she was still going through RCIA.
Oh, is that like actually a thing in the Catholic Church? Do they recommend it or is it like enforced?
I've heard arguments saying that you're allowed to marry like I could very well marry a pagan girl. I could do that. But they can't. But the whole purpose behind it is that they can't interfere with my religious convictions or the children's religious convictions. So essentially, they basically have no choice but to submit to the Christian and Catholic dogma. They can't force me to be out of it. So yeah, you could not believe it, but you can still marry. But that's not what you're supposed to do, because you need both sides of the Christian faith, the feminine Christian female as well as the masculine Christian male. You need to have both. So I'm immediately against that. And I'm seeing a lot of Christians out there do this. What did you miss? So far, we found out that I was Wolf. I was censored by Jack Murphy on this little talk about Dugan, to the point in which I could still see that I gave super chats out, but Luke seeing the super chats being deleted on his end. So that's one thing you lost. We'll talk about.
If you watch the video now, no trace of your comments exist at all.
Yeah, so I got fucking censored off of the platform, which again, I was a little bit, I will say this, I was a little bit pushy, but I never fucking called him a whore or a piece of shit or anything like that. The closest thing I could call Dugan was a Soviet boomer, which again, he's a Soviet Gen Xer, but that's neither here nor there. And even then, I was asking legit honest questions like, what is Comrade J? What are your thoughts on Sergei Tretyakov? What are your thoughts on the foundation of geopolitics? And nothing ever came of it. They didn't want to answer the questions. They just keep assuming this guy's a good guy. He's changed his ways, and they don't have that ability to detect evil.
If you can even understand what he's saying, because he just starts and he never stops and he never says anything.
He just says like the distrusity of the complexity of the individual and the ontology of the higher man, and like it's like this constant fucking adjective after adjective after fucking adjective.
I mean, at least Jordan Peterson gets down to his points eventually. He'll go off on tangents, but at least his coherence.
At least Jordan B. Peterson is fucking entertaining.
Yes.
At least Jordan B. Peterson, you see like a grind reel of Jordan B. Peterson. Like, this is what you have to do to incorporate your shadow. And it's somewhat entertaining. Like, this guy, he fucking didn't have any fucking thing to say. He had nothing to say. He's just mumbling to himself, right? And Gamson says, so is that super Catholic husband Jared Fox Flintlock, aka Flintlock? He wasn't always Catholic. He's converted within the past few years. Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people they're running to the church because they're not Christian, not in a meaningful sense. They may espouse the things, but they're still there to know me, and they still break the rules. They still go and they still do all the horrible stuff, and they just say, "Well, I'm forgiven by God," which you are, but you still have to walk away from that. You still have to stop doing the things that you're doing that are wrong, and you know they're wrong. How many of these people are still going to do this stupid shit? How many, like, is she going to drink herself into a stupor and then we're going to find her shitting herself again on the toilet? Like that's what I want to know. Yeah, I'll keep going.
How important that was back then, but I'm so thankful today that he ensured that happened. Over the next year, I would continue to reject religion altogether until he asked me to attend mass with him for probably the 500th time, and I begrudgingly agreed. Now, if you Catholic mass,
why did he married her when she was not a that's Lord, protect that marriage, Lord, because I don't think it's very strong. Keep going.
You might understand what I mean when I say I had a lot of questions about the faith and the traditions of Catholicism. So I started asking them. Then I would ask the same questions to many of my non-Catholic and even non-Christian friends. For months, I would just ask an incredible amount of questions and realized I literally knew nothing about Christianity. Of course, I rejected it for years. How could I accept something that I didn't realize I knew nothing about? The more I learned about the truth, the more the lens that I saw the world through changed. One of the defining moments where I realized I was wrong was learning that pride was the worst of the 7 deadly sins.
Is that it? Did you really have to go to church to know that? Did you really have to, like, did you not get that through cultural osmosis? I mean, imagine if I came out of the movie Seven with what's his name, Kevin Spacey and Morgan Freeman and freaking Brad Pitt, and I said I learned the most deadly sin is pride, or something along those lines. It doesn't feel genuine. It really doesn't.
I mean, you shouldn't be too harsh on her. I mean, one of my biggest conversions was the moment with the points of conversion was realizing that Jesus actually was God in human form, because it never dawned. For some reason, it never clicked in my head. Like, oh my gosh, that's God talking.
Yeah, that's one thing for me. Like, but even then, Gameson says I'm censoring Ash and Birdie 2.0. Oh, and Ash and Birdie's been acting. I don't know, but Birdie she's gonna have a entire freaking series by fucking Medicare done by her. I guarantee you. A lot of these Insta thoughts are gonna have Medicare go after them. Yeah, I'll keep going.
Toxic, predatory, and perverted, even from a secular point of view. It is not a coincidence that a lifestyle ingrained in depression, suicide, sinful behavior, and regret is given the title of the most deadly sin and then forced down our throats by every major corporation and social media platform and then targeted to child audiences. That doesn't happen by coincidence. Now, I'm sure you all want me to get to the story of what was the turning point in my life that really brought me to where I am.
Please.
Right after we renewed our wedding vows in St. Augustine earlier this year, we arrived home to find my 5-year-old kitty, Halsey, acting strange and throwing up. Long story short, Halsey ended up in the emergency room for an entire week with a suspected diagnosis of cancer. You can imagine how I took this news considering how much I love my cat. I went into a state of such sadness, hopelessness, and anxiety that I actually developed a skin condition that was lurking in my DNA, waiting to be triggered by a traumatic event. During this time, Justin offered to pray with me for Halsey to return home to us. So I did, praying for St. Francis of Assisi.
So the cat is the thing that made her come to Christ. Right. Thank God the dislike button is gone. Like, legitimately, let me see if I can actually find the dislike button on this thing. Give me 1 second. I want to look this up because I want to see how many dislikes she actually has.
It's not too many. I'll try to look it up on my end.
Yeah, she has 369 dislikes, which again, that's fairly good for 5,300 likes. It's about like less than 1%. But again, my big issue here is that I do feel like this is a trend. This is a trad fad. There are a lot of people who just don't want to be with the SJW, and so they want to go to the exact opposite. We saw the same thing with the SJWs and not Gamergate, but the beginning of the meme war, right? The great meme war of 2016. We saw a lot of people wanting to deliberately become Nazis to fight communists. We saw people basically fight in the streets of Berkeley, and they didn't give a shit about the SJW. They just knew they weren't that. Yeah, keep going, Luke. I'll finish this sucker out.
The patron saint of animals was the only thing that brought me peace. It was the only time of day that I felt that no matter what ended up happening, I would be all right. Only when praying was I able to calm my anxieties. It also helped me ask more questions about how prayer works, how you're supposed to pray, and what you're supposed to expect from God when He answers your prayers. I do admit I feel a little vulnerable sharing this with you all because I know it sounds silly to be brought to my knees in prayer over my cat when there are several other issues in this world that I should have been praying for all along that do seem much more important than my cat getting sick. However, this must have been the journey I was meant to take, and I can't regret the path that brought me to where I am today. And evidently, our prayers for Halsey worked. We were able to bring her home and get our crazy-eyed girl back with us with absolutely no answers as to what made her so sick. All I know is that my husband has been praying for years for my conversion and an opportunity for me to see Christ in action. And I may have been
What type of man would marry this type of woman? Like, is it a trophy wife thing? Like, he married her and he's like, oh, God will work on her afterwards. Like, the thirst, I'd imagine. And I only say this because it's not about her. It's not about him. It's about the kids now. It's not about the cat, by the way. Okay? As much as I like cats, as much as I'm a fan of the pussy, I'm not interested. St. Francis, cheap candles. Come on. Exactly. You know, this was one of those instances where, like, who would the target demographic be for somebody who believes this type of stuff? Probably an SJW, right? Like an SJW who basically has like a safety animal. Like, does she have a safety animal, do you think? I think she has a safety animal.
Well, she has a couple cats.
Well, a couple cats ain't safety animals. I mean, the safety animal is deliberately designed so, like, for to comfort you, so to speak, right? I don't know. This is one of the things I want to talk about as well. We're gonna talk about this because this is. I watch a guy called The Better Bachelor. Do you ever watch that guy, Luke?
Not really. What's he up to?
Well, he's going to be talking about how the UK school is forcing people to wear boys to wear skirts. You have to wear a skirt now.
Oh, wonderful! One of those.
Yeah, and a lot of it is like society has turned on these boys. And I agree with him. I really do agree that society has turned on these boys for the worst. Go.
Alrighty then. Next. This is sad. This is just sad. A UK primary school is asking boys to wear skirts to be more inclusive.
Why? This is dumb.
Because the Muslims know how to manipulate white boys, and the Muslims aren't going to do it, by the way. We all know that even though they dress in the fucking dress all the time, they're not going to freaking do it. We all know this is going to be used specifically to bash people. Now, keep going.
There's a point where I do feel like society is leaving me. Like, I'm not leaving society. I haven't noped out into a plot of land in a cabin where I've got razor wire up and no trespassing. And, I haven't walked away from society. I'm still here and I'm still trying to participate. And the good news is in the real world, you can still participate and you don't really run into too many of these crazies. But when you've got government that has crazies in it and the school boards that have crazies and a lot of universities and movies and everything else that's going woke and going all in on this feminist stuff, we're starting to run into problems. And that's where people need to kind of buck back and fight the system a little bit. So I found this story because of this on 9gag. And it says UK primary school asks boys to wear skirts to promote equality. And it just says at the bottom, I just want it to stop. And this had a lot of likes and a lot of comments on it. And I gotta be honest, I feel the exact same way. Like, please stop. Please stop being crazy people. Please stop trying to tear apart our society, because making a boy wear a skirt does nothing to promote equality at all. It's meant to humiliate them. It's meant to feminize them. How about girls are forced to shave their heads like me, to promote equality, to show that they're as strong and empowered as men. You'd say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, neither does forcing boys to wear skirts. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
You carry.
Then, of course, you know, that was one of the things I noticed. And we all know it's not going to be it's not the Muslims, it's not the immigrants. It's going to be the fucking white boys that are going to do it. They're literally turning people into like, they're turning our kids into fucking, you know, a harem. They're you know, was it Femboy Link? I think it was like the Breath of the Wild. There was like a Gerudo Link. Like they make Link wear like a fucking tank top or
was that part of a disguise? I don't know about part of the game.
It was part of the disguise because, you know, to be around Gerudos, because Gerudos are all freaking females, right?
Although that goes all the way back to Final Fantasy VII when Cloud had to dress up as a member of the harem.
Yeah, they've been working hard on us, haven't they?
And the main villain chose him over the others.
Look, he's very pretty, okay? No, but like, there's that, and also there's also a lot of other shit that I wanted to talk about, because this is well, that's one issue that I want to talk about, but another issue I want to talk about, I just wanted to bring this up because, again, I'm just talking about stuff that's out there, and I'm going to share some of these links here and there. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go. This is one that I want to talk about. It's called the Kali Yuga. Now, what's interesting about this is that we like to hear about the traditionalists saying, we're in the Kali Yuga. What if I told you we already were at the Kali Yuga? Kali Yuga has already been, we were born into it, and we've been in it since, like, well, since Krishna died, apparently. That's what the term is, right? The rebirth of the gods. Catch up later. And on the note, I'm head out. Okay, cool. All right, cool. See you around, man. Let's see. What is this?
Cloud all dressed up.
Is he actually good looking, or is he? Oh God.
Even Eris is like, ooh.
It's like Moulin Rouge. It's like I'm getting like a very Moulin Rouge vibe. Look at those. I'm not a big fan of those freaking. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, the new updated version has a lot more flair.
You can consider this winning. Jeez.
Yeah, this dance scene definitely wasn't in the original.
Well, they couldn't afford the budget. I mean, I remember Final Fantasy like 8 basically coming out like on 6 DVDs or 6 PS1 discs. Remember that shit? Fuck, if I forgot, like one reason I wouldn't buy one because I was fucking frightened I was gonna forget it. Oh fuck, what happened to disc 4?
Yeah, Razor Fist really has a good take on the effect of all of Final Fantasy. It's just, I gotta play that clip.
Resent the player's very existence. All I could ask is, how long is the game planning to jerk itself off exactly? When did Final Fantasy go from one-winged angel to one-armed bandit? And then it hit me. It was always that way. 13 is absolutely every awful thing about Final Fantasy taken to its logical extreme. And for
Yep. And 13 was shit. Like, they literally pulled hard the cards to like get themselves out of that fucking crap. Embrace tradition, stick to PS1 version. Yes, I would recommend that. I mean, the only reason they made a great remake of Resident Evil 2, but the Resident Evil 3, all we got out of it was Rule 34 fuel with the freaking the blood sucking flea, right? Now let's continue with this shit. Here we go. So I want to talk about this. Let's go.
Kali Yuga, the spiritual degeneration of humanity.
We're going to be degenerates. This is what the Hindus believe. But one of the things I was listening to as I was watching this video is they already said that the Kali Yuga has already begun. That we're not going to go into the golden age. You know, that we've already been in the Kali Yuga. So the question, and again, this is where, you know, the traditionalists try to manipulate you into believing that that they could take us to a golden age. But if we're already in a dark age, then we don't have to go through bad times. We're already in the bad times, aren't we? You know? So one of the things they'll say is, oh my God, for us to have a new golden age, we have to go through the hard times. Well,
we've already had them. It's all good.
Yeah.
According to the Hindu scriptures, such as the Puranas, we are in the age of darkness, the age of ignorance, commonly known as the Kali Yuga. Now, if you want to know about the entire Yuga system, then I recommend that you go over and watch my episode on the Yugas. I'll leave the link in the description, and you'll get a good idea of the complete Yuga system. But today I want...
Of course, we have to define what darkness is in the Hindu sense.
Yeah, it's darkness, like, it could be a good thing for all we know, right?
Yeah, it could be light in the Christian sense and darkness in the Hindu sense, so it could be just good.
Yeah, absolutely could be.
Oh, speaking of which, there are no confirmed reports on this, but a surprising number of Muslims have converted to Christianity because they had a dream about Jesus.
Really?
Yeah, apparently a lot of imams are like complaining about like, man, this is getting to be like thousands of people potentially Muslims have converted to Islam, Christianity.
Are you sure about that, or are you sure that
can't really confirm anything? We can only know by what people have said.
What version of Christianity?
We haven't said yet.
If it's Orthodox Christianity, don't trust them. Don't trust them. Don't trust them.
Are there a lot of Orthodoxes in Muslim countries?
Yeah, there are. There are a lot of you do know that Russia has like the majority, like more mosques been built under Putin than any other time in Russia's history. And he even said on the record that Christianity has more in common with Islam than with Western Catholicism.
Who said that?
Putin. because West bad, East good. No matter how crazy it is, no matter how insane and degenerate and how fuck off the reservation you might be, and you're what you said it. West bad, East good.
The theory of traditionalism, how the Orthodox and Islam have some trace of the traditional spirit in it.
Yeah, except the difference here, and this is the real question for all my Ortho bros out there, is Theotokos a perpetual virgin? In Catholicism, she's considered a perpetual virgin to the end of time. I know, right? Sucks to be her. But it's a hell of a lot better than the eschatology, the eschatological claims of Islam, where they basically say, hey, not only is Jesus going to come back and fight alongside Muhammad, but Muhammad's going to rape Jesus's mother, and Jesus is going to finally nut up and actually have a wife, and the woman who is supposedly supposed to be a perpetual virgin for all time is raped by Muhammad. Along with Athena, along with Freya and all the other heathen gods. He fucking has a massive orgy with them, and they rape him. So this is the Orthodox opinion within Islam. So good luck trying to square that circle.
I focus on the Kali Yuga, which people would call the spiritual degradation of man. To give you a little brief insight of the Yuga system, what I'm speaking about today is the long count system, the traditional system, not the system created by Swami Sri Yukteswar, the shorter system that some people follow. But most Hindus follow the long count system. It is the traditional system. To explain the Yuga system briefly, there are 4 yugas or 4 ages. There is Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Now, these 4 yugas span a vast amount of time, which I explained in the other episode on the yugas. But the smallest Yuga, which is Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, the age of ignorance, still spans 432,000 years. Now, from a human perspective, that is a very, very long time. But from the cosmic or universal perspective, that's not much time at all. But from
humans are the most important part of this conversation.
And at the same fucking time, which is interesting, is if this happened at, I think it's the death of I can't remember which god it was, but like their main deity, the death of, I think it's Krishna, right? He died, and then that kicks off the Kali Yuga. This guy's gonna say, if we continue with this video, he's gonna say that we're already in the Kali Yuga. So we don't actually have to go through harder times. Technically, if you go into the long count system, the traditionalists are full of shit, but they're gonna save us. They're gonna figure out a way to bring us in that golden age, aren't they?
I mean, if this number is correct, then that would span most of human civilization.
Exactly, right?
If not all. I mean, if you're a creationist, this is all of time, for crying out loud.
Yeah, all of recorded history almost.
Perspective is a long time. And according to the Puranas, the Tantras, and other scriptures, we have only just entered into the Kali Yuga. So when did the Kali Yuga begin? According to traditional Hindu authorities, the Kali Yuga began with the death of the godly sage Krishna after the famous battle in Kurukshetra, which is documented in the Mahabharata epic, which is one of the great epics of India. Traditional authorities put this date of the death of Krishna at 3102 BCE, but a lot of scholars suggest a more probable date of 1500 BCE But there are a lot of people in India who actually think it's actually even older than 3,102 BCE.
Yeah, probably because they want to be able to jump and skip ahead so they get to that golden age already. You know, that's what that is. Keep going.
What date you believe, it doesn't really matter, because according to the scriptures, we are in the Kali Yuga, no matter whether you think it's 3,102 or 1,500 BCE. The Kali Yuga began with the death of Krishna. And so now we are apparently in the Kali Yuga. So to understand our plight in the Kali Yuga, we need to understand how we sort of descended into the Kali Yuga. And to understand that, we need to think of the Satya Yuga, the first Yuga I mentioned, which people would say is the age of truth or the golden age, where people are directly connected to Brahman and they have a direct union with Brahman.
The Saturday Yuga.
Ideas of separation between people. People have a fundamental understanding that everything is one, and accordingly, it sounds like an ideal paradise.
It sounds like Saturday.
It sounds like something that has never happened in all of human history ever.
It's almost like it's just a fucking con by these fucking traditionalists and these Brahmin fucking priest caste to try to get you to fucking continue cleaning the shit.
Probably the closest thing we have to that is the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, and the god of the Veda. Yeah.
Now, but we descend from this age through Treta, Dwapara, and then eventually into Kali Yuga. Now, what this means is the Kali Yuga symbolizes the spiritual degradation of man. So what I mean by the spiritual degradation of man is that in the Kali Yuga, people mainly identify with the material world, with the physical world, and we turn away from our inner world because practicality and what's important in the physical world takes primary importance. And so we push away the inner world. We forget about...
Yeah, suggesting there's some distinction between pragmatism and spirituality.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a typical trope in fiction, how logic and reason are separate from spiritual and emotion, and that's how you must be more emotional.
We're going to talk about that as well. Okay, we're going to get into that shit real quick. But keep playing it.
Who we are deep within, and we concentrate on the outer world. Now, there's no wonder that there's a lot of unhappy people in the world, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and so forth and so on, considering we have turned away from our inner nature and we focus on what we can do in the physical world and who we are, or who we think we are in the physical world. This is a big problem because we're focusing on just one aspect of life, and all of our attention is focused outside of ourselves. This is the temperament of the Kali Yuga. And if you don't think that that's the main temperament of people, just go outside and have a look around what people are interested in. People are mainly interested in the physical world, the material world, and how they appear in that world, resulting from the Kali Yuga tendency to focus just on the outer world and who we think we are as a physical entity. There's no wonder that rationalism has become the prime mentality.
Oh yeah, so let's go irrationalism, right? Let's just assume and give up all our human rights and all our human possessions because the material doesn't matter.
And I would argue that rationalism has never really been embraced seriously by anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we're not utilitarians. We don't automatically have calculate every action to find out what the best outcome is. That would be rationalism. But.
And I mean, I would go further. Like, the more religious and Christian I've become, the more rationalist I've become. So I don't see a correlation there at all.
No, I don't know either.
200 to 300 years since the Enlightenment period in Europe, and so we have this rationalistic perspective, which is more of a me-centered approach to life. And we then focus on what is practical in life. We don't sort of consider our inner world. We don't consider our spiritual nature, our spirituality, our connection to one another in the universe. These things get pushed in the distance because from a rational perspective, we're very skeptical at everything and anyone who is speaking about such matters. So we have this rational perspective.
Well, yeah, this isn't irrational. This is endless skepticism. That's a real problem because endless skepticism will reject any kind of meaningful discussion for ego's sake.
It's that global skepticism. That's what it'd be called.
Universal skeptic. That's it.
Universal. Yep, exactly.
Or there's a better word for it. I'll think of it.
Yep.
In the Kali Yuga, where basically most people are dwelling just within the prefrontal cortex, this frontal lobe part of the brain, where the cold cognition, to use cognitive science, dwells. Which is that cold cognition is basically just the rational aspect, the ability with the intellect to cut things up, this and that, right and wrong, so forth and so on. And so when we're from that perspective, that very alert, attentive perspective, we lose sense of the hot cognition in the more unconscious regions of the brain that are connected to our spiritual nature and also our emotional intuition and so forth and so on, which actually gives beauty to the world. That hot cognition is what.
Which, by the way, for those of you out there who need to know, the hot cognition area, I think it's the mammalian brain. That's the one that's for emotions. That's the emotional thought center. So so I would argue that we're not in that state because we have a lot of people thinking with their emotions and not their rational cognition. It's actually the exact opposite.
And
You
what's
know?
really, I recently discovered a channel called Professor Dave Explains, where he goes through the videos of Deepak Chopra and even spirit science, and points out that most of these Eastern spiritualist people are always going to use like pseudo-scientific terms like quantum to legitimize their position. And when he's using the brain right there, I'm thinking, oh, he's just trying to put an image up to give us himself legitimacy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with Mark Passio trying to say, oh, you gotta balance your right hemisphere with your left hemisphere, man. These fucking degenerates, these moral cowards. Yeah, he sounds exactly like that. And I guarantee you, he's gonna become a possible asset in the near future. I don't know. Keep going.
Wasn't what makes athletes achieve the miraculous. That doesn't come from this part of the brain. We're focusing on this part of the brain, this frontal part of the brain, as we know through education, through Western education. And this is making people all around the world, because Western education has also infiltrated Asia and other places around the world.
Infiltrated,
yeah. Because you can't just be that, we're in the golden age now, and you fucking people are just can't get over the fact that everyone's one. And people talk about religion being a con. Go look at India. Like India, like literally, you have Brahmins getting high on their off their ass every fucking day, acting like there's something spiritual, and then they have people cleaning out the shit. Like literally, I keep saying cleaning out the shit because that's what they're doing. They're cleaning out the fucking toilets.
Like it's the theory that all life is unity also includes like things like hyper vegetarianism. But of course, some people won't even eat insects, and they say, "Well, wait, how do you get around that? Well, how do you get food?" Or some of them will actually say you can't eat vegetables because vegetables are a form of life. Like, but wait a minute, if you can't eat animals, you can't eat vegetables. How do you eat? Well, they get around this by saying, "Well, I'll eat the leftovers from someone else's meal."
Well, that or the one that I actually saw. I remember there was this woman who basically wanted to look like Barbie with her proportions, and she said she was vegan, but she eventually wants to live off of sunlight. That's what she said. She wants to become photosynthetic, like it's like Knights of Sidonia or some shit.
Wait, she thinks she's a bushroot from Darkwing Duck.
She thinks that like if she exposes herself to cosmic rays, like and sits in the sun, and of course she's one of these Nordicists, right? She thinks she could like regain all the energy of the sun if she just sits in the sun, and she'll get her nourishment that way. I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
And this is making people extremely irrational. And this then turns people into what is good for me. It becomes a me-centered approach.
No, it doesn't.
Why?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It could become a we-centered approach. It also could be used as a hat. Keep going.
Here's a clip from Distributus for us.
Oh boy.
The secret garden, which mirrors directly Mary's uncle's relationship with his own family, with his own land. The garden represents everything that the British aristocrat should be. It represents everything of what differentiates an aristocrat from a Brahmin. The Brahmin is aloof. He is of a different kind than the people he rules over. He is spiritually not of the land, and he's set apart because he does not dig the earth. He is higher because he is detached. But the aristocrat rules because he is of the same blood and land as the people who he rules over.
Yeah, again, like I said, if I were to point out to any of the degenerate religions of the past, Hinduism would be up there, because they're the type of people who, let's be frank, they're having, without Western influence, they wouldn't be doing shit. They're going to be the next spacefaring nation, but don't even have indoor plumbing. Come on, we all know that's because you fuckers needed us to build for them. They needed us, to the Western man, to build for them, so that way they could get ahead.
Which is actually a criticism I have about atheists and Christians, because Christians only have to do the heavy lifting for these atheist thinkers.
Well, they don't understand that the only reason they're allowed to have these ideas, and I say allowed, yes, is because Christian thinkers said, okay, we're gonna let people have their own choice. So we're gonna let them have their own way of looking at the world. We're gonna give it to them. We understand that you can't fall in line all the time, so we're gonna have separation of church and state. And if you want to go believe in a Gnostic God, go right ahead. But I sent you this link, Luke.
Why should I attend this? Why should I do this? Everything becomes a me-centered approach, and we lose sense of our connection to one another, because we're
Have you ever wanted to play an
RPG? Part of our brain, this little bubble, and we're acting accordingly. We are in self-preservation. We are on guard, ready for anything that comes into our field of consciousness. And so,
which is kind of ironic. He says that Western theology will make you me-centered. Well, You don't get more Meesener than thinking that you are God in some sort of form on Earth.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's really, really depressing, to be honest, that these people, I don't know. I personally just don't, again, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Call it a culture clash. I personally think the Hindus are like the Tau Empire from fucking Warhammer 40K. The way they're using the H-1B visa to try to get us hooked on their technology and everything, their caste system. I mean, all we need to get the God Emperor back. We need like, it might, like, part of me thinks that if I get fucking fired or let go because of the season, I'm gonna have to make a Book of Eli quest across America to fucking warn the God Emperor about the forces of chaos. I might have to do that. I don't know. But this is something that I discovered. This is a new RPG called The City of Mist, and I found it very interesting because it sounds very similar to what a lot of those chaos magicians and a lot of those SJW types talk about. Play it.
Where you can play a guy blatantly inspired by Spider-Man in the same group as someone playing Thor as a mechanic and another player character with the superpowers of Humpty Dumpty, and have it play out like a comic book or a TV show instead of having it segmented into real-time conversations and 6-hour fights. Well, this game is my favorite of all time. In this RPG, you play as average people struggling in a massive city that's always working against you. You know, like Cyberpunk, but your choices actually affect the game. The major trick in City of Mist is the mist itself. This looming canopy hangs over every district, from the overcrowded neon forests of downtown to the dungeon-like subway stations. The game works on core mysteries, and the mist is this enigmatic force that governs everything. The mist grants people mysterious powers called mythoi, and these mythoi can come from literally any story you could ever think of. They're all fairy tales, history, ancient forces, and comic books that want to retell themselves with.
So memes that want to retell themselves with you as their avatar. So people, they've literally turned ideological possession into a fucking mechanic in this game. I'm not kidding. Keep going.
You as their avatar. So in the City of Mist, you can be a plumber with the mythos of Mario, or a high school student with actually just Star Platinum. And just like Star Platinum, the mist hides your powers from onlookers who don't understand what's going on. A fire mage can be mistaken as a gas explosion, or a conjured hellhound can just look like a big Doberman. The game has a lot of examples of people already in the city with these powers, like a mafia kingpin with the mythos of Hades, or a drug addict from out of town with the mythos of Alice in Wonderland. It's such a fantastic concept because it lets you find new meanings in stories by retelling them through a grim, modern reality. I played a game with friends where I was a political official with the growing powers of Odin. At the end of the game, I lost my seat in office and decided to fully embrace being Odin. And then I duked it out with the avatar of an eldritch god who ran a burger chain. I don't want to play any other games now. I also played a guy with several part-time jobs who had the mythos of Primordial Ink, but that was just kind of a self-insert. The cool thing about character creation is that you get 4 character sheets, or theme books. That's because each character can choose how much they let this mythos control their lives. Because you also have logos.
So what kind of game is this? Logos. Oh, I stopped it. I didn't realize.
You did. Let's hear what the logos has.
So what kind of game is this? Is it like a D&D kind of game? Is it a computer game?
It's like a D&D campaign. Well, I would have. It's like a D&D paper, pen and paper sort of game.
Oh, okay.
The way it's coming off is it's coming off very similar to how I kind of see reality. Instead of calling it the City of Mist, I call it Manyun's Concrete Jungle. Now keep going.
Apparently, RuneSmith, the guy we're watching, is I type in City of Mist, and he's one of the biggest people who promote this game.
Oh yeah, I mean he's an SJ. I don't think he's an SJW, but he definitely is culturally aware of what the fuck's going on in the world.
Logos, things that tie you to the real world. You know, who you actually are outside of the story. Stuff like jobs, relationships.
Wait, what is Logos in this world?
What is Logos? Tell us what the Logos is.
Logos is
Because you also have logos, things that tie you to the real world. You know, who you actually are outside of the story. Stuff like jobs, relationships, belongings, a traumatic event, a mission, and so on. Your mortal coils. So your degree of being a myth goes in order. Sleepers, who can't see through the mist. The touched, those who have been chosen by the mist to carry out a myth. Borderliners, who walk the line between reality and story.
Ashton Birdie.
Legendaries, who are extremely powerful beings overcome by their myths. And avatars, who are people who live only to carry out what their myth wants. Those things are world-shattering, and the ones that exist in the city control entire operations. Another one of my favorite things about the system is that your character can fluctuate as they progress, gaining more mythos as their ties to reality crack, or returning to reality as their mythos fades. It really depends on what you pay attention to in your everyday going on.
I have mixed feelings about these D&D campaign stories, because they're very fun and very imaginative, but you can never be fully attached to your character that you make.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I were to ever do a D&D campaign, I would record it. I made that mistake before where we didn't record our campaign. And as a result, we didn't get that extra action, like, oh my God, what the hell's happened here? Oh my God, you know?
Yeah.
That actually is entertaining. There are people on Twitch who actually have D&D campaigns and they have good stories and they actually, you know, do it like a radio play.
I mean, there are people who, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the guy who made Rick and Morty actually animates and remakes his D&D campaigns.
He does?
Or something to that effect. He has a D&D campaign with fellow celebrities, and they reinterpret it into a cartoon series, or at least he did that a couple years ago.
Yeah, let's continue hearing about it, Steve.
The game has integrated a sort of progress based on failure, and I think that's really encouraging. When you're actually playing City of Mist, you'll find that it's broken into different types of segments that you might not be used to. Most often, it's meant to be like a sort of superhero noir, where you investigate a case and then duke it out with Rumpelstiltskin, who has a Tommy gun for some reason. It starts with a scene-setting monologue by the MC, or Master of Ceremonies, who's just the game master.
Yeah, this doesn't sound like a fucking cult shit. I mean, for all we know, we're going to
The Dungeon Master.
Well, yeah, it's a DM, but the problem is the Master of Ceremonies makes it sound a little bit too on the nose there, you know. I'm actually recording my main D&D campaign. Do it, man. Do it, DZ. Do it, because I'll tell you this: I went through a D&D campaign and it changed my life for the better. You know, one of the things I like about D&D is you get to take the knowledge with you. You get to carry your character with you if he survives. You get to, you know, do things in that game you would never be able to do in real life. For me, I got to talk to a woman that I was actually terrified of. And I'll tell you, as somebody who has a very overactive imagination, you could actually get some psychological progress done. There's a reason why the occultists and the Satanists use fucking psychodrama. It works. You know, even the Jungian psychologists use psychodrama. I'm not saying that is something magical. I'm saying that it works, you know.
I have to play this clip now.
Okay, what do we got here?
Full moonlight is a single, perfect mermaid. Very rare. There aren't many of them left. Sometimes their lifeless bodies wash up on shore, their fragile, delicate chest cavities having long since taken their last breath. But to have the serendipity to see one alive is considered a very divine gift.
Is she hot?
Oh, my dude. She's not a 10. She's an 11.
I want to talk to her.
And what do you want to say?
I want to tell her that she's amazing. She makes me feel new things. But she also reminds me of things I felt a long time ago, like the sound of wind chimes on a lazy summer afternoon, or the crickety screen door of an old dusty ranch cabin, or catching fireflies after sunset under the dull glow of orange street lamps. And it's almost as if she makes me feel like I'm alive again.
Mermaids are skittish. You'll have to make a charisma roll to see if you scare her off. Okay, well, you rolled a 2, and you have a modifier of -8.
Yep.
Rats.
Yep. That is one of those things. I've had that happen to me many times, and unfortunately, I've actually picked up barmaids that are basically they're fat and ugly. I only go after a 10 and above. That's just how I roll, so to speak. No pun intended. Continue, Luke.
And introduce the game with a bit of foreshadowing, where you cinematically describe 2 gangsters dumping a body into the ocean, and then smash cut to the players in a diner. As the MC, you have a few responsibilities. The Master of Ceremonies guide has principles that I use in every game I run from now on, and I suggest buying it just for story writing direction. First, you're the writer of each case. It has a guide for doing this with mysteries, namely the iceberg structure. Second, you're the referee. It's a rules-light system, but it's important to know what actions might ruin the fun or break the immersion and avoid letting them happen. Third, you're the host. Essentially, you delegate equal attention to each player, making sure that nobody hogs the spotlight. And fourth, you're the narrator. I still don't know how to describe scenes very well, but this entails doing that and instigating complications. Fifth, and most important, you are the character's biggest fan. You make a problem, and then watch these amazing writers at your table solve it by telling heroic stories, and you get to enjoy everything that they do. That's it. You don't need to worry about control. And this is the biggest relief ever, because the players have to describe everything else. It's so freeing for everyone, because the players get the control of both their good rolls and their bad rolls, and what they interact with and how their powers work. The players will trade spotlights as they play through scenes and cutscenes, taking actions or changing the story.
This sounds like The Wolf Among Us. I've always had this feeling it feels like The Wolf Among Us. It really does come off that way. Like, you're going to encounter Rumpelstiltskin, and you're going to encounter Snow White and the 7 dwarves. Like, really.
called power tags. For each mythos category, like adaptation, mobility, or divination, and each logos like a possession, your personality, and your relationships, you get a few powerful taglines that can apply to certain situations. These can be anything, but the MC needs to make sure that their vague nature is balanced. So for example, let's say with the subversion mythos that hides or changes perception. The power tag memory wipe works well in stealthy situations, but shouldn't apply to investigation roles. Also, always ban the power tag jack of all trades. That shit's too vague. Anyways, you use these tags when you make a move. The game has a set list of core moves that apply to anything. Convincing, facing danger, going toe-to-toe, hitting with all you've got, investigating, sneaking around, and taking a risk. It's a very narrative game. You also have cinema moves, like flashbacks and montages that give you one-time bonuses.
Well, I kind of hope so, if it's mostly just description. It has to be narrative.
Which I kind of want to play this simply because I feel like this would help me grow as a writer. Like, I honestly can't write for jack shit except for, like, you know, lists and, you know, instructions and whatnot. But other than that, like, I can't write stories. I just don't have that ability to do it, you know? So this might help me in that regard. Keep going.
Describe cool stuff. Say you're in a fight with some giant rat in a sewer, and it spits acid at you. You have to face danger and add up applicable power tags. If you've got some ancient shield artifact, a history in gymnastics, and tough skin, you get a cumulative +3. Then you roll 2d6, add everything together, and pass or fail. A 7 to 9 is average, which is a partial success. So let's say you get that, and the rat's attack ends up being half as effective as it normally would be. Which brings me to another detail. Conditions. Instead of a diverse network of constant conditions, you just have a card and a power scale of 1 to 5. If a rat's attack normally inflicts a skin melting condition of -2, and you half block it, you just get like a first-degree burn with a -1. I feel stupid saying it, but contradictions are the only truth in my world anymore, so I'll say that this game is complicated only because it isn't. The freedom to make anything happen means that anything can happen, so you have to account for it. Games can be single investigations, but it's designed so you can enjoy your stories in the same way as current media, spanning episodes, chapters, issues, seasons, and even volumes. And once you finish a session, you geek out during the credits of your own story. This, which might I remind you is a mechanic, lets you congratulate other players on the cool stuff that they do, which builds morale and makes the experience of City of Mist that much better. My friend Jordan, who plays Kurt Savory on Arcane Arcade and Evenfall, introduced me to this game. I've talked about it a couple of times, and then the creator of the game reached out to me. So I'll be making a couple of videos here and there about the game because I love it. And
Go subscribe to this guy. Go subscribe to Jordan Smith. He has some pretty good stuff out there. But, like, legitimately, this is very similar to Mein Young's Jungle. The concept of Mein Young's Jungle. And I've been talking about Mein Young's Jungle as well. You know what Mein Young's Jungle is?
Not really.
Alexius Mein Young's Jungle. Mein Young's Jungle. Let's see if there actually is. There's some information out there about it. Give me 1 second. Let me find this for you. And you're going to realize exactly what Mein Young's Jungle is. It's the fucking Immaterium. It's the Immaterium. It's the world in which everything exists. Let's see if I find Mein Young's Jungle. Here we go. Alexis Mein Young. Here we go. This is from this is something that I've talked about before. It's interesting because it's exactly the same thing. It's Mein Young's Concrete Jungle. Play this.
What's this?
It's philosophy too. Just cut to the.
Oh, PPS.
Sherlock Holmes lives at.
And which word do I skip to?
You would skip to there, right there.
Where?
Wait. There, right there.
Talked about the idea of reference. The referent of a word is the object in the world that the word tracks or keys into. So a referent of the word cat is this guy. But what happens when there is no referent? Like, what's the referent of the word Jabberwock? And how can I determine the truth value of such a word or the object it refers to? Is it even possible? I suppose it could be that when we refer to non-existent objects, we're just speaking nonsense. But I'm almost positive that I really do know a lot about things that aren't real. And I think of that information as facts. Facts that are true. Like, I know that Snow White hangs out with 7 dwarves, and if you told me that there were 8 and that one of them was named Sloppy, I would know you were just wrong. But where are those dwarves in the real world, and how do I know how many there are, and how could you be wrong about something that doesn't exist? To parse this question some more, let's head over to the thought bubble for some flesh philosophy. Here's another assertion for you. The present king of France is bald. True or false? Bertrand Russell said it's false. And it's false even though this sentence actually has a couple of statements packed into it. 1, it asserts that there is a present king of France, and 2, that he is bald. But there is no present king of France. France, France has a president, not a king. So the whole proposition ends up being false. Since there is no present king of France, Russell said, we can't attribute any true statements to him. It would be just as false to say that the present king of France has a ponytail and a nice bushy hipster beard as to say he's bald. So this French king is a non-existent entity that's falsely been ascribed an existence simply through an error in our understanding of
The
language.
globalists.
This is similar to what we encounter.
The globalists, the traditionalists, the Jews, the Freemasons. This is how this works. This is how I parse the world. This is how I parse memes and reality. Yes, we can assume that there are a shadowy group of conspirators. No, I don't believe it's every single Mason. No, I don't believe it's every single Jew. No, I don't believe it's every single person who has a global or a international policy. Okay. This is very important because, again, you get to talk about things that don't actually exist and have true statements about them. Keep going.
Countered with the cats and tails conundrum back when we were discussing the nature of reality. If you say that every cat has one more tail than no cat, that can be interpreted to mean that there's such a thing as no cat. So just like with the present king of France, a weirdness in our language makes a no thing look like something. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Now, Russell was sure that we can't make any meaningful assertions about something that doesn't exist.
That example made no sense to me on the face of it, but, you know.
Well, the idea is that no cat is the name of the being. The no cat is actually N-O-E, cat. It's just another way of saying who's on first. That's why I'm asking you, right? Who's on first?
Are you asking me or are you telling me?
Yeah, well, who's on first?
It depends if you're asking me or if you're telling me.
Exactly, that's the whole point. So just like how people could say, I wish to serve man. Well, serving man can mean killing them and serving them for side of lamb chocks and little boy Sue, or it could be helping your fellow man at a soup kitchen. They both sound the same way. You have to be very cynical with your words in order to bypass this type of stuff. Now, this guy, Alexis Magnon, which I'll just say, better beard than Dugan. He wore it better. Just keep going.
20th century Austrian philosopher Alexius Meinong had a different view. Meinong was convinced that we can have meaningful thoughts about objects that don't exist in reality. But, he said, in order to be able to speak meaningfully about something, it must, in some sense, have being. So Meinong came up with an ontology, that is, a system of being, that was divided into three classes: absistence, subsistence, and existence. And
Well, I would argue that if we're going to talk about things that don't exist in reality, they have to have some tangible, like some adjacent connection to reality.
This is where it gets interesting, because this is basically a map of the immaterium. This is a map of what Alan Moore would call the immaterium. This is a map of what we would call the sea of memes, wherever it might be, the warp. Because it basically, what Alexis Magnon has done is he's basically given a philosophical groundwork for how you could view where memes exist or subsist or absist. Now keep going.
Posited that even non-existent things could fit into this system. First, he said every possible object that you can think of absists. If you can think about it, it has absistence. This includes stuff that could never exist in real life, like unicorns or the mythical lost island that our old monk friend Guanilo said would be the best place on Earth if it were possible. And inside the group of things that absist is a smaller subset of subsistent objects. These are things like numbers and theorems that don't manifest a physical existence, but they also don't contain any sort of impossibility. They're just
right-wing populism.
That can be found anywhere in the world.
What was that?
Right-wing populism. Like I keep telling people, wait till the communists start claiming to be on the right. Wait till we start seeing a split in the right-wing parties as well as the left-wing parties. Wait till we start seeing this type of crap happen. But things that anything that
Dugan.
What?
Dugan.
Yeah. Yep. Duganists. Absists. Basically every possible object that you can think of. Hot fire, rocks that bleed, screaming trees, they all exist. They all have absist, but they don't exist. And, like Harry Potter, for example, he talked about Harry Potter earlier. The Harry Potter doesn't exist, but he absists because there's a certain official headcanon of Harry Potter.
Yeah, I like what Neil Gaiman, G.K. Chesterton said this about fairy tales. Fairy tales are very real. Not that they tell us that dragons exist, but that dragons can be defeated.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, I'm probably getting ahead of myself.
Yep.
cats. And finally, existent objects are those that actually are here in the physical world, like cats and smartphones and current French presidents. So existent objects have all three levels of being. They exist, they can be conceptualized, and they can be imagined. Now, I should probably point out that many of Meinong's contemporaries viewed him as something of a nutter. He was trolled pretty hard by some of his contemporaries who referred to his supposed realm of non-existent objects as Meinong's jungle, a place where round squares wander around with the present king of France, hippogriffs, and never-ending godstoppers. And maybe you think...
Well, of course, round squares cannot exist by definition.
Well, they can exist, they could subsist, and they could absist, but they don't exist. So just like how I could think of burning ice, let's say.
Well, but their
of,
contradiction. I mean, a burning ice can be ice that's on fire, which is almost a magical impossibility. But a square circle or a round square is a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, but I could also think of a world where there's actual perfect communism. I could think of. I can think.
That's
of
not
a
even
world,
a contradiction. That's a lie.
No, like I could legitimately think of a world where perfect communism has been achieved and it absists. You know, this is where we get into the notion of Plato versus Aristotle.
Well, that's getting into the realm of saying that Star Trek's governments can exist.
Well, they can exist. Well, I mean, technically they can. They can exist because if you go further out into reality, if you go further out into the universe, eventually you're going to see, after so much distances, you'll see patterns of matter just by certain mathematical probability. You'll see, let's say, you're more mathematically speaking, you'll encounter my particular knife that I have, like my Cold Steel Voyager that's on my desk. You know, you'll find something similar to that just simply because of sheer mathematical probability. That is a mathematical truth. However, empirically, we haven't encountered it yet because you'd have to go so far away that you also see a similar solar system. It's very much like Sliders in that regard. Yeah, I remember Sliders, but keep going.
Meinong's jungle is just a bunch of baloney too. But you might also say that there's a difference between something like a round square and something like Harry Potter. Because you might think that Harry Potter is real in some sense. Like, you get that he's fictional, but to you, he feels real. So what about that? Is that nonsense too? Not necessarily. Here's one way that some aestheticians or philosophers of art make sense of what's going on when we talk about fictional objects. They begin by pointing out where, metaphorically speaking, we talk about them. The domain in which we have a conversation is known as a universe of discourse, and inside this universe, assertions can be either true or false. Our default universe of discourse is the actual world, so in regular conversation, Harry Potter is a wizard is a false.
And the thing that really annoys me most about Harry Potter is that the whole story of Harry Potter is that racism is bad. And that's it.
Really?
The whole story, like if you go through all those stories and all this universe, the main moral message you get from Harry Potter is that bigotry and racism are bad. That's it. Like, Voldemort is a wizard supremacist. He believes in absolute genetic purity, and he believes that wizards to rule the universe.
He's a grand wizard, then, isn't he?
Yes.
He's a grand wizard. Oh, fuck.
I mean, every other time we get to it, like, there's always like these references to these arcane racial ideas, like the notion of purebloods having to inbreed.
Yeah, that, and also, Blavatsky's shit, right?
Or having an administration, offering teaching. And that's a criticism of J.K. Rowling, aside from her turf position, is why does the school of Slytherin exist? Considering that it produces every other evil wizard in the world, why do they permit it to exist? Because one of the wizards that made the school was exclusionary?
I was always a Hufflepuff guy. Not just me. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Assertion, just like the present king of France is bald, because there is no Harry Potter, so he can't be a wizard. There's also no wizards. But when we're having a conversation about the world of Harry Potter, we've entered a different universe of discourse. When our universe of discourse is the world of Harry Potter is a wizard is a true statement, even though it's false in the real world universe of discourse. And whether we know it or not, we use different universes of discourse all the time, not just when we're talking about fandoms. Like in the universe of discourse that is basketball, taking a few steps with the ball in your hand is called traveling, and it's illegal. But in the universe of discourse called football, taking steps with a ball in your hand is not called traveling and is perfectly legal. So one way to solve the puzzle about the existence and truth of imaginary objects is to say that in the case of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling created a universe of discourse that is Harry's world. And that universe shares some things in common with our world, but it has differences too. In the real world, it is false that Harry Potter has a lightning scar on his head because there is no Harry Potter. But in the universe of discourse that is the world of Harry Potter, it's true because both Harry and his lightning scar exist. So
in the universe of discourse where the free folk are saving the West, we're supposed to buy into the notion that Haythrun is a magical witch. and that you're not allowed to talk down to her.
And her best friend is a priest of hell.
Exactly. So this sort of gives you a very interesting, lay of the land, so to speak, with who you're dealing with. I think it was in what was it? Shin Megami Tensei Persona 5, I believe, right? They had the idea of palaces, and they had the idea of, I think it's the metaverse, right? So they had, each person has their own individual palaces, how they see the world and how they see themselves in it. This could also be, you could use this type of viewpoint, this Alexius Meinung's mentality, to see how the world is viewed through a communist lens. The communist will see the perfect utopia just over the horizon. He'll see people like the notion of the bourgeoisie as a real phenomenon, a real thing that doesn't just absist or subsist, it exists. So if you could categorize people's worldview in this regard, you get a better idea of how to fight them mimetically speaking. Does that make any sense?
All right.
So like, for example, the Muslims believe that Muhammad flew up on a horse to go get the Quran. To them, that actually did happen. But you and I both know that abscess, because there is a possible world when that happened. We don't believe it exists, but we could play along with them. We could have imaginary conversations about things that don't actually exist. So this is where we get into the whole, was it Richard Spencer's world building bullshit, where he starts talking about, oh, I want to go to the stars. Like, this is basically the same crap that he plays. The difference here is that, I know what it is and I know how to stop it. And then basically the idea is to destroy their world, destroy their worldview, break the fucking game, break the toys. I think it was Brother John who always said that if you're a magician, then so am I. And the easiest way to fuck with these people is to basically say, no, we're the real Eurasianists. You're just a fucking Soviet boomer. We're the real people of the heartland. You're just some fucking degenerate boomer who just can't get over the fact that you just wants war. That's how you do it. You break the fucking game. You break the toys. And the easiest way to do that is to understand what you're breaking. This guy will tell you. Keep going.
Within a particular universe of discourse, and our interlocutors know this, even if it's not explicitly stated. This lets us say things that end up being true, even though the truth doesn't track to this actual world. Now, things get a little weird when our universe of discourse is a fictional world that's set inside of our real world, like House of Cards. Frank Underwood is the president of the United States, but, well, so is Barack Obama. They both live in the White House and have the same executive powers. Unlike the universe of discourse to which Harry Potter belongs, the universe of House of Cards adheres to all of the rules of our world. Thankfully, much to our credit as a species, we are great at distinguishing between universes of discourse. We can distinguish between what's canon and what's not. We can fight passionately and knowledgeably about what might happen within fictional universes of discourse, like who would win in a foot race, Superman or the Flash. And when you think about fictional realities where different universes of discourses meet, like the DC Marvel crossovers, you're actually engaging in some pretty serious ontological ponderings. You're holding in your mind an incredible number of propositions that are specific to different universes and figuring out exactly what would be true if those universes were combined. For instance, in a world where both ghosts and zombies exist, would it be possible for one person to become both at death? Our ability to
At this point, I have to play the line from infamous the great, famous, and late Stan Lee.
Oh boy, what is it?
Dance, friends. So one question I'm always asked: who would win in a fight? Who would win in a fight if Galactus fought the Hulk, or if Thor fought Iron Man? And there's one answer to all of that. It's so simple. Anyone should know this. The person who'd win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win. If I'm writing a story about the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and he gets into a big fight with Spider-Man, and millions of people out there say, who would win? Well, it depends on who I want to win if I'm writing the script. If I want Spider-Man to win, he'll win. If I want the Thing to win, he'll win. These are fictitious characters. The writer can do whatever he wants with them, so stop asking those bonehead questions, because I've had it with that.
All right. So in that case, we're going to stop the Kali Yuga, and we're going to fight the traditionalists, and we're not going to play by their script, are we? We're going to have a winning script. Yep. Now imagine the internet. Imagine everything that I've told you just now with the imaginary worlds, and now imagine the internet. The internet allows the world to basically be, to take form of this absistence and subsistence world. The Illuminati does exist, but it was are we talking about the Bavarian Illuminati? Are we talking about the illuminated ones, or what are we talking? Some third option? You gotta be more cynical with your words, because Bolsonaro, being a right winger, is a truthful statement if you're in Brazilian politics. In American politics, he might very well be as far left as you can go. Olavo might be a traditionalist in the sense that he identifies as a traditionalist, but he may have nothing to do with Julius Evola, Renegade, and all the rest of them. You got to be more cynical with the words and start, one, defining terms, and at the same time realize that to fight the other people just take away their ability to speak the words.
And there's probably no perfect embodiment of this manipulation of reality than the Kenosha Kid trial.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there were people out there who actually thought that Kyle Rittenhouse shot three black men.
There is a reality in which those people still exist, and those people still believe that is the truthful reality. That is the objective reality that we all have encountered.
The line between what were the three lines? The line between the reality and the fiction is blurred because of the internet.
Exactly, and that's the reason I've said that the internet has kind of become the warp in a lot of ways. It allows us to communicate through long distances, travel through long distances, view through long distances. It's very similar to the 40K version of it. It really is.
You're in the bizarre compression of the multiverse. Tread lightly.
Exactly. I've always seen myself as a sailor of the Sea of Fates, anyhow. But yeah, I think we might see in the next year or so, we might start seeing war. So my advice, let's dedicate yourself to a fitness goal coming this next year, and learn to shoot. I'm teaching people to shoot, and I'm teaching people to protect themselves for the dark times coming, because I believe they're coming, guys. Anyhow, Luke, final thoughts.
Hopefully this plays right.
We'll never understand this stuff.
I think I'm starting to get it. It sounds like Swamp Hollow's Eve, but without the ritual sacrifices.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's basically magic without the magician. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be good to one another. Take care of one another. Remember, saving the West is a side quest. This is the Digital Renegade Podcast. Out.